Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Don't see what's yours for the taking tonight. Ooh, show me your soul, baby. I'll show you mine. Show me your soul. Can't you see it's way past time? How explicit do I have to be? I mean, I spell it out before you get it, baby. Show me your soul, and honey, I'll show you. I'll show you.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Laura Michaels Harris. So happy to be here. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the 16th day of Septiembre. See, I speak Spanish. I'm really excited to be here. It's a beautiful day here in the Chicagoland area. How are things starting to shape up in your neck of the woods? Put it in the comments. We are here today. Why? Why? Well, the most important reason is we're fulfilling one of the greatest promises in the universe. That promise that tells us that when two or more of us comes together in a like-minded spirit, something awesome, something wonderful is going to happen. And that's the way it works. That's the bell of purpose, you all. If you've never been here, it's not some little gadget. It's not some prop just for the show. There's a reason I have a bell of purpose, because I ring it on purpose and with purpose. When you hear the bell, it means that, you know, just like the truth, there's a ring to it. So it means that something that came out of our guest's mouth, perhaps even mine, when I'm not in the midst of a senior moment, or even one of your comments is out there, and I feel like, hey, lean in, tune in, don't miss it. This is what you're going to hear. There's the bell of purpose. Another something or someone that's here every single day, has been for the last 6 years, 50 weeks a year, Monday through Friday. My sidekick. This is my version of Ed McMahon. This is Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo. And that Dunkin' Donuts coffee I told you all I bought, I only have to use like a smidgen That stuff is strong. I drank yesterday. I had like the 2 cups I usually have when I'm here on the show. By 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, you guys remember Gilligan's Island? Do you remember when they had those seeds they found and Mrs. Howell was running around all fast? And my kids, Ethel and Lucy, my cats, they were like, their ears were pretty like, what in the world? Right. So today I am water. I pour a half a cup, then I pour water in it. Right. So, and I want to say thank you to Sherry Chamillo from the UK. She heard me talking about my diagnosis this week earlier of chronic sinusitis. And I was like, because I was, you guys know it's been a year and a half that I've been dealing with that. They finally did a CAT scan. Said, oh, you need to have a tooth extracted, a molar that's messing with it. You might have some allergies. And it looks like sinusitis. So Sherry said, go see an allergist, do the nasal spray, and go for acupuncture. Well, wouldn't you know it, my niece, who lives, she lives in the city, but one of her clinics is like 2 minutes from our house. And she's a doctor of acupuncture. So I talked to her this morning, gonna go in there this afternoon, get my first, yeah. So that's great. Thank you so much. That is why we have conversation. I had no idea, but Sherry did, and I thank you for that. God bless you and your son. So what else is new before we get our guesting? I got a great guest for you today. Seriously, first timer here, and love this topic. I don't think I've ever had anybody on the show about it. I'll get to that in just a second. Thank you to the publisher of Heart of Hollywood magazine, Gabriela Salas, and also the CEO of Heart of Hollywood Motion Pictures. Last month, you guys remember, we were on the inside back cover. And they have now moved us for the next 2 years to the very back cover of the magazine. I'm so excited. I'm so proud. You guys, this is yours just as much as it's mine. This is ours. We did this together. This is what happens when the promise is fulfilled and we come in here like-minded. This is the kind of thing. And I want it for all of you. Whatever it is you dream, it's going to happen. We're going to make sure that. Can I get an amen? Okay, there's that. And before I bring our guest in, because I want to spend all the time we can with him today. Let me get this product placement commercial out of the way. You guys see it every day, but it's still the truth. I believe in small changes create big shifts in our lives. They really do. And, if you're considering making a small change as far as your health and wellness, you want to get rid of some sugar, you want to put something better in, try this. This is V8. I love this size can. This is the 11.5 fluid ounces. There's a smaller one, but I have to drink 2 of those. So I just get this. It is 100% vegetable juice, only 60 calories per can, and 2 servings of vegetables. If you have trouble getting that in, you're on the go or whatever, ditch the Monster drink, ditch the, what is that one with the wings? That one, Red Bull or whatever. Ditch that stuff, all that sugar and all those fructose corn syrup and all that stuff. You know that fructose corn syrup is just like, that was country as hell. Did you guys say syrup instead of syrup? Sorry. That stuff is some stuff in it like heroin. It's addictive, that fructose. That's why it's in stuff that doesn't need to be in. Get rid of all that. Treat yourself. Be good to yourself. Get some V8. You'll find it. It's easy. Head down the nearest juice aisle in your local grocer, and you're going to find these babies right here. V8. Pop the top. I did have a V8. I could have. There we go. Guess who's here? His name, everybody, is Tim. Are you ready? Oh, wait. That's not what I want to show. Wait a minute. Hold on. See, I'll be glad when I'm on NBC so I don't have to do all this stuff because I am not good at it. All this clicking around. I was looking for something earlier. Forgot to go back. Tim, here we go. That's why. Are we ready? Tim Kellis. That's his name. What's his game? Well, Tim is a renowned Wall Street analyst, and he takes on what could be considered society's biggest problem today. Not in this house. I rebuke it. DIVORCE. Remember the song? That's right. He takes on the chronic problem of divorce. It is, in my opinion, an epidemic in a lot of ways. Now, the journey that led Tim to tackling such a significant issue was both personal as well as professional. Now, after a successful career that eventually landed him on Wall Street, Tim met what he thought was the girl of his dreams, only to find out that this relationship would end with bitterness and, you guessed it, some anger. The journey included work with a marital therapist, almost said a martial artist. public school. And after he discovered the therapist wasn't really helping, he decided to tackle the issue himself. He is here today to teach couples how to create a lifelong marriage. And we have something to show a little later on. Now, remember, I told you guys earlier, you know how we are when we have someone who's never been here. We're on our best P's and Q's. This is a safe space. So at this point, let me just remind y'all what we do. Show our guests some love. Hit those hearts. Put your heart into the conversation. What's it say on the top up there? This is where illuminated conversations come to light. And that is in both ways. We are the light. Today, each of us is a miner. There is no light at the end of the tunnel unless you dig the tunnel. Because if you see a light coming from the end of the tunnel, guess what? You're in somebody else's tunnel, right? So that's why miners have the light right here. Because wherever they turn, the light is there with them. They are the light and the light is them. All right, get that? You like that? Thank you. You can find more of that great content in my masterclass, which just went #1 a couple weeks ago. Get over on my page. It's pinned to the top. Elevate the power of purpose. That was you know what that was? Sure was. Shameless plug. You can do that when it's your show. Anyway, here he comes, you guys. Put your hands together. Put your hearts in there. And let's welcome to the show Mr. Divorce himself. Wait a minute. Has he been divorced? He didn't put that in there. Inquiring minds want to know. Here it comes, you guys. Guess who it is? Tim. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Wow, Lauren, what an introduction, man. That was awesome. I am doing fantastic. And by the way, I was born and raised in St. Louis, so I'm a Midwesterner as well.
Oh, St. Louis MO.
St. Louis, Missouri, absolutely. I still have my whole family, my siblings, and my mom still lives there.
Is it true what they say about the Show Me State?
I lived in Virginia for a while, and they said Virginia was for lovers. I said, I'm from the Show Me State.
So no, I can't say it. It might be some kids watching. Anyway, so Tim, welcome to the show. I am really excited to have you here because usually when people hear about the topic that we're going to jump into today, it's too late. You know, it's like, it's all the stuff I couldn't stand that bitch, or whatever. I hate his ass, all that kind of stuff, all that bitterness. There's always some casualties. Somebody on the chessboard gets knocked off or taken off completely, i.e. kids, friends. I know people that when they got divorced, all the friends divorced with them, all kinds of different things. But we're here today to talk to you about it because you help people not have to even get close to the D, let alone divorce. D-I-V-O-R-C. See, I got to use my fingers. So divorce. Why this topic? What did you get divorced? Do you have a divorce under your belt?
Yes, I do. And it was the pain. Well, first of all, just my background, as you said.
Yes, say hello. My bad. Where are my manners? Say hello. Tell everybody exactly where you are in the world today, and then go ahead and jump in.
Hello, everybody. I am dialing in from Delray Beach, Florida, which is south of West Palm and north of Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, I'm an hour north of Miami, exactly. You guys don't need to sing.
You are?
It's beautiful and sunny today here in South Florida.
Did you say you're an hour from Miami?
I'm an hour north of Miami, yep.
Well, we should have dinner or a drink in December. I'm going to be there for Unstoppable, which is at the Art Basel.
Oh, absolutely. I love
I'll be there for that for 6 days.
We will definitely get together for that. Let's follow up on that. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, Tim. So you're there in Florida. You were in Wall Street for some time. Now, Wall Street, when we think of Wall Street, we think New York City. Is that where you were?
Well, I've actually lived in 8 cities in my adult life. I went back to grad school in Dallas at SMU and started at an investment bank in Dallas and then moved to Boston and then eventually landed in Manhattan in the height of the market in 2000. I had an amazing Wall Street career in the 90s. It was unbelievable. I'm a technology guy. I have an engineering degree, and it was unbelievable. But the point is, at the height of all this, in 2000, I met this girl. I actually had known her for 8 years. She always had a boyfriend. I always had a girlfriend, but we got together when we weren't with anybody else. And if you've ever fallen in love, you know how it works. It goes it goes very quickly. When you meet the right person, we came together and connected very quickly. fell in love. We're going to spend the rest of our lives together. But then we started fighting. But then more importantly, as you said in the intro, when we went to the therapist and I realized the therapist wasn't helping, this is much to advance the psychology industry, which is what I do, than it was the fact that our relationship wasn't working. Because the reality is in our culture today, we think that if we have problems in our marriage, we go see professional therapists and they're going to help us with that. And I enlighten people on what exactly happens in therapy and what is supposed to happen in therapy.
Well, let me ask you something, because you may not know it. I'm not only am I married to a therapist, but my husband specializes in relationships, but he's also like his PhD is in human sexuality, which is a big part. So he's like the male Dr. Ruth. So I hear all this all the time. And I've been analyzed long before we got married by him. Trust me. It took me a month of Sundays to catch on. You know, we're sitting there talking. All of a sudden, we're even eye to eye. And I look away and come back, and he's way up here looking at, yeah. So how does that make you feel? I'm like, what you doing? Hey, get out of my head. So anyway, let me ask you this. When you went to therapy, did you go by yourself or did you go as a couple?
We went as a couple.
And how'd that? So
let me, and again, since you just said that about your husband, I'm going to be very careful about what I say about the psychology industry, but the psychology, yeah, exactly. The psychology industry is still based on Freud's biology theory. Okay. And what that means in practical terms is referred to as cognitive behavioral therapy. But what that means in practical terms is the how does it make you feel question.
Yeah, I know that one.
Well, and again, I'm quite sensitive of your husband, but if somebody uses the how does it make you feel question, they in essence don't really know what they're doing.
Ooh.
Okay, because it's supposed to be how does it make you think, not how does it make you feel, or why does it make you feel. Why is not a question that is asked in the psychology industry yet.
Why is not a question
that is asked in the psychology industry yet.
How you know that?
How does it make you feel, but why does it make you feel that way?
Well, to be fair, some may. Because
there are good therapists. I do
know therapists that are booked, but they're also spiritual. They also have mindset pieces that they bring in outside of the textbook.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. Well, let me ask you this question. Here's the differentiator. Have you ever heard of Carl Jung?
Jung, yeah, everybody, yeah. Well, I'm
sure. You think everybody?
Even me in public school.
What?
Even me, and I went to public school. Yeah, I heard of Carl.
Well, I didn't know him until I did my research. But for your audience who doesn't know who Carl Jung is or was, Carl Jung was 19 years younger than Freud. Freud looked up to Jung so much he considered him not only his heir apparent but his son.
Oh wow!
And as we know, Freud's theory is the sexuality theory. When you say that your husband's a sex therapist or whatever, that's based on Freud promoting the concept that sex is what motivates us, which is not true. Okay,
wait.
Sex is the it's lovemaking for one thing, but the point is Jung disagreed with Freud, and they had their famous breakup in 1912, and Jung went much further than Freud did in figuring out how the mind works. I consider Carl Jung the father of spirituality. That's the way I look at what Carl Jung teaches us. And so if your husband actually incorporates Carl Jung in his practice, then he's doing it right. If he's
let me tell you this. We run into, even though he hates it when it happens, but we run into quite a few of his success stories. And so I go by that. And I'll tell you this, how I know he's doing it right, because I'm married to him. And I know I have the most wonderful marriage anyone could ever hope for. And I was not, I only had one other relationship in all my adult life. I was 22 and it was only 6 weeks. All that time in between, because I had a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma from a lot of sexual abuse in the foster system, on and on and on. In the military, more sexual abuse, on and on and on. And I just did not think I was wired for a long, committed relationship. But I was also not wired to be one of those gay guys out there running around looking for love in all the wrong places. I always said, if I was going to die for a man, his name would be Jesus. And I meant it back then, because that's all I knew. I didn't know about all the greater than that I do today. But my point is this. Happiness has a lot of different definitions for people, Tim. They really do. Then let me ask you, are you married currently?
I have the most amazing woman in my life. She's my motivation for doing this. She has asked me not to talk about her, so you'll find I don't really talk a lot about
I'm sure you did, because I see how you talk about my husband. I want to reach you there and slap you in the face a minute ago. I'm just kidding. I was like, he better watch it now. You know, you
let me get to the point, because I do want to clarify, because that is a strong statement I said. And again, I don't know your husband, obviously. The point is, I could not comfortably and the only reason why I can comfortably and confidently tell anybody that I have solved the marriage problem is because I forgave my parents when I was 25 years old.
You forgave them of or for
raising me the way they did.
Oh, tell us about that.
It turns out the biggest influence on a marriage is the relationship with the parents, because that's where the belief systems come from.
If you have parents.
Well, even if you don't have parents, you have parents.
I had 22 parents, 22 sets. I had 22 sets. Watch my Gold Cast. I was in the foster system. So.
No, you have biological parents. That's a fact. But you may not have had a relationship with your biological parents, but you still had a relationship with your biological parents. If you were given up for adoption, for example, you carry that fact with you your whole life. My parents gave me up. There's something wrong with me.
I didn't know that until I was 11 years old. I didn't know that I was anybody other than where I'd been all my life till she dropped dead. And they came in and said, "You're not Larry Dixon, you're Lauren Harris." What? No, you weren't adopted. What was anything about adoption? So I get it, but that's why we're here, to have this illuminated conversation. So are you saying that stuff you carry, especially like let's use my experience because it's here, from biological parents? I did not know. I met my biological mother for the second time at age 32. Now, how does that connect to what you're saying as far as what I carried if I was never even around her? You saying genetically?
Well, not genetically. So what I'm doing is I am teaching that our mental problems are not biologically based. There's no genetic component.
Oh, I don't think that either.
Well, but the industry does. The industry is still based on the biology theory, which is that we're born with our mental problems. They're biologically based. If you ever hear a professional psychologist mention the brain, mention serotonin or dopamine or neuron or synapse, if they mention anything about the brain, they are promoting the biology theory. Conventional science has long held the position that the mind is a reaction to the chemicals in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the most illogical concept that's supposed to be science I've ever heard of. Because those of us that are mentally aware of ourselves realize I have an internal life. My mind is actually my life. I experience life inside my head. We all do. We all experience life mentally. But the psychology industry is still based on the biology theory, which is in essence why they give behavioral advice. What I do that's unique is I address marriages mentally and psychologically, which I can tell you from the 24 relationship books that I've ever read, that forgiveness is not mentioned in a single relationship book I've ever read. Empathy is not mentioned in a single relationship book that I've ever read. These are mental concepts, but because of the biology theory, the psychology industry, generically speaking, does not address what it does mentally. It addresses it behaviorally.
Well, Tim, I got to ask you where you're getting your books. Because
if you've ever read Carl Jung's autobiography.
That's Carl Jung. I'm saying you said You made it sound, I heard like a couple dozen. So
I read 24 relationship books.
That's 24 books.
Yes.
My husband read that many last month. Seriously.
I understand there's a lot out there.
And highlighting. And I've picked up a few. So I got to tell you this. I've seen the word empathy in some of them.
Okay.
Here's what I'm getting at. Because there are people, Tim, who benefit from therapy. And we're not just talking about marriage therapy or relationship therapy. Therapy. I'm one of them. So, but it's like a good shoe. You know, if I want a shoe to not, give me blisters and tighten up 2 hours after I put them on and I'm away from the house, I shouldn't buy them at Payless. I need to go to Macy's and put some money into it. Right. I think it's the same sort of thing. It's got to be the right fit.
I understand that, but happiness is a goal. Happiness is the goal. Okay. And what that means is for the couple to be happy together. What I, in essence, do, Lauren, let me get to the bottom line. What I do when I work with couples is I eliminate arguments in a marriage. What I'm doing, when I say I've solved the marriage problem, the solution to the problem is equality. You and your husband are partners. Okay, you guys are partners in life. What that means is neither of you can control the situation. If we were to canvass relationships in this country that are not working, I won't say 100% of them, but I will say very close to 100% of the problems in relationships today are control issues. One or both are trying to control the marriage. And what I do when I work with couples is I neutralize the power drive. I neutralize the need to control. Where there are no distinctions, there can be no superiority. Perfect equality affords no temptation for abuse or control. If you and your husband have a marriage based on equality, neither of you is in charge. Now, you have your skill sets. He has his skill sets. If the two of you come together and you submit to your partner's skill sets, that's not control. But control is where you have no say in conflict. And if you eliminate the control mechanism, the two of you learn, what ultimately you learn is you learn to take on the world instead of taking on each other.
So somebody out there right now is thinking, this guy, Tim Kellis, sounds like he's pretty self-taught when it comes to this thing. So why should I believe Tim Kellis, who has finally found a happy relationship, but I can count on, I can count 15 friends that are happy now and say it's by process of elimination. They had to get it bound where they were bound to get it right eventually. What makes you not fall into that category, Tim?
Well, I mean, the reality is the proof is in the pudding. I mean, I've got video testimonials of couples that I worked with. I can show you and point you to couples that have worked with me and what has happened to their marriage as a result of working with me.
But couldn't somebody say there were just as many couples that may have worked with you that fell apart?
Listen, you can be skeptical and try and find out if it's right or not, but the reality is
I'm doing the same thing you're doing about people going to relations, going to a therapist. I'm doing the same thing. I'm walking around kicking the tires, which is what we're supposed to do. Because I'm going to tell you something. It says illuminated. Illuminated is not just because you say so. Illuminated, and it's not because I say so. Illuminated is because it starts to make sense, and it has a ring of truth for whoever needs it. So that's what we're doing here.
The answer to your question.
Here's what I don't want, Tim. I don't want somebody that could be perfectly suited for a therapist to take that out of their mind as not an option, simply because we have somebody that has another way for someone else. That's what I don't want them to do.
Well, first of all, what I'm doing is I'm not saying therapy is not good. What I'm doing is teaching people what is good therapy and what is not good therapy. So what I'm doing, one of the things that's interesting, if you think about it, is most people don't know what goes on behind the doors of a therapist's office. Most people
unless they've been in there.
What?
Unless they've been in there.
Yeah, but they still go in there without knowing what's going on in the therapist. What I'm doing is I'm teaching people what should go on in the therapist's office.
How do you know what should be going on in the therapist? You're not a therapist.
Again, the only reason why I can comfortably and confidently tell anybody I have solved the marriage problem is because I forgave my parents when I was 25 years old. It turns out we are supposed to be born twice. The first is obvious. The first is biologically. But the second, and this is what the psychology industry is supposed to be doing, the psychology industry is supposed to be helping us transition into adulthood. Okay? Bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah in the Jewish tradition, the first communion in the Christian tradition, in the Latino tradition, the quinceanero, these are all initiation ceremonies into adulthood. A balanced ego is not when you're better than anybody else. It's when you're better than you used to be. That is the billion-dollar answer to a question that we've all been trying to figure out in this age of individuality. What that means, though, is when your first ties of people defining you are your parents. Your parents are the first people to define you. And if you still, as an adult, rely on their definition of who you are, you've not broken free from those chains of childhood. That is what the psychology industry is supposed to be doing, is helping us and holding our hands through that transition into adulthood. If a therapist is doing that, they're doing their job. But if a therapist is not doing that,
now that I can get behind.
That's what I'm talking about.
Because it's like this. It's like I don't think we should say, oh, I found a great holistic doctor who really helped me with my sinusitis. But don't ever go to a traditional doctor again, because that's not true. That's my experience. And you got to seek to find. Some people they're not open enough to consider new and better alternatives or possibilities, or maybe some of this and some of this. Right. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but you also, don't you think, Tim, tell me how you feel about this. Don't you think you have to be vested in finding what works for you, not based on what somebody else said worked for them, right?
Absolutely. But what I'm doing is I'm giving clarity to what you should be looking for in what works for you. So let me give you the point. If you go and look at Wikipedia's definition of cognitive behavioral therapy, you will see that it literally says in Wikipedia that cognitive behavioral therapy deals with the here and now. Okay? If you're not dealing with your background issues, if you're not trying to find the root causes of your problem, but you're dealing with today's situation. So here's the point of what I'm talking about. Okay, one of my biggest things that I teach people is that where there is anger, there is fear. Okay, when your partner gets angry at you, you have an opportunity, once you learn that the reason for that is because they are afraid. If you are behaving morally, if you're out cheating or out, coming home late when you're not supposed, if you're doing things you're not supposed to be doing, that's a different scenario. But the question that I have been trying to answer, that I believe I've answered, is when you're doing the right thing. You come home late from work and your partner gets mad at you. That you're really not doing something wrong, but you still get in trouble. And what you realize is your partner is not mad at you for coming home late from work. Your partner is mad at you because they have low self-esteem, they have abandonment issues, maybe mom and dad got divorced and they have a fear of divorce in their marriage. So if you learn that underneath anger is fear, you can deal with the fear and not the anger. If you're dealing with the anger, which is today's issues, you're not dealing psychologically with why somebody's angry. But the reason why somebody gets angry is because they're afraid of something happening. Once you focus on the fear instead of the anger, now you're going back to the source of the problem. And now you help them heal through forgiveness. That is what you're supposed to be doing.
And I agree with that. I can agree with that. Why? Because right there on the wall, 1988, I became the first person in this world to have an apology company. I did thousands of apologies for people who could not do it for themselves. Right. And I was not an expert. I didn't know. I learned how to apologize and the power behind it by doing it for other people. I watched the literal transformations as it happened right before my eyes. That's how I knew it was a force, that forgiveness is a force. It can tear down so that you can get up. And once you get up, you can stand up and start building up. But nobody builds anything on their stomach. Nothing but maybe a sandcastle. That's about it. But what my point is this. I want to talk about when you said you solved by forgiving your parents. Now, what about the person? There are people who get divorced who have charmed upbringings. And I question it too when I talk to one. I have a friend works in the network, the E360 network, a fellow producer. And he said, oh, no, I had a perfect childhood, absolutely perfect. And I'm like, is that even possible? Is anything really perfect? So what I'm getting at is, what about the person, Tim, or the people that come or that you have crossed paths with who say, no, I don't need to forgive my parents. They were wonderful. They did everything they could. So where is the root for a person? Where's the begin? Where's that demarcation line where something ends and something begins? Because we have to put something old down to pick up something new, even if it's mindset. How do you approach those people that just are not buying that piece about, I need to forgive my parents?
Well, the way that you figure out whether that, because, I hear people all the time telling me they've forgiven their parents, but here is the way that you figure out whether or not that is true. Okay? The reason why relationships are successful is because couples get along.
Yeah.
The reason why relationships are unsuccessful is because couples don't get along. It is that simple. So if I were to talk to your friend who says he's getting divorced, but he has no problems with, or she, whoever's getting divorced and they have no problems with their parents, what I would look into, what I would dive into further is the conflicts that they have as a couple. Because that determines what you learn. This is the big, again, what I'm teaching people. What I'm doing with conflict resolution is I'm teaching couples how to deal with conflicts. The way that you're supposed to deal with conflicts is as disagreements, okay? Which are logical, which are forward-looking, and they're problem-solving. The same way, Lauren, as if you and I became business partners. I'm the accountant. You want to buy a $5,000 computer and we can't afford it. Think about how that dialogue would take place. We would go back and forth logically. You would understand my perspective and I would understand your perspective. Mm-hmm. But what happens quite often in relationships, because they are so emotionally charged, is those disagreements then turn into arguments. Okay.
So, and hello, Dr. Janice Hooker-Fortman. We have a relationships expert who just popped in here today. She actually has a television show called Relationship Matters. And so if you have something to say, Dr. Jan, chime in, and that goes for all of you out there.
What's your name?
Dr. Janice Hooker-Fortman.
I've been on Janice's show before. Hey, Janice, how are you doing? It's Tim again. I know Janice.
Yeah. So now you're going to get it. I'm just kidding. So listen, but what about this now? Because here's the deal. That person that we were talking about is married now. But when we started the conversation years ago, it was because he could not maintain even a dating relationship. So marriage was not even on the horizon for this person, or so he thought. So how do you approach people who can't even get to the jumping the broom state, so to speak, where they even feel that they are marriage material? You see?
Well, one of the things that I explain. Yeah, one of the things that I explain is what love is. Okay? Love.
I know what love is. That one? I want you to show me. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. What love is vulnerability.
Agreed.
Okay? Exactly. And vulnerability is the fear of getting hurt. And when two people fall in love, they get over that wall of fear. At the beginning of the relationship, it's referred to in the professional world as the false facade. You're putting your best foot forward when you're dating because you're trying to impress the other person, and the other person's doing the same for you.
That's the
but
honeymoon
what
phase.
really happens, I'm sorry?
That's the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, but
You
what
open your
really
door,
happens,
sending flowers and all that stuff, give them
exactly.
massages, and then 6 months later, you're like, none of that's happening.
Well, this is when you get to the fork in the road on how you handle conflicts. But what eventually you need to learn as a couple, as an individual within a relationship, is to be able to talk about things about your past that you may not be so proud of, knowing that you have a judgment-free zone in your marriage, that your partner will not think less of you if you bring up things about yourself.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Those secrets, I always refer to them, they're just like bacteria, mold, spores. They don't do anything in the light but die, but they grow and flourish in the dark. And so, you want to get those things out there. In anything, you don't want to look over your shoulder constantly about something's going to be exposed, or, oh God, is that Brenda who knows my secret? Let's go this way. Why did you do that? You see what I'm saying? Absolutely right. So we're going to take a short break, and then I want you to think about this question. I want you to talk about this when we get back, Tim. Why do you think it is that we call it falling in love? Why isn't it jumping into love or climbing into love? Why does it have to be falling, as if you tripped or it's some kind of a mistake or stumble? Are we setting ourselves up just with that mindset for a failure? Think about that. You guys get your questions ready. We'll be back with more of, and we're going to take a look at some of the work Tim does when we return. In the meantime, get your questions ready, and let's chat it up. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Except I received this insight about a title called Prisoner of War. The book
Welcome back to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Lauren Michaels Harris. My guest today is Tim Kellis. He is a world-renowned Wall Street guru, and now works with couples all over the world in their relationships, helping people avoid the pitfall of divorce. So before we went, I want to ask you about falling in love. Why do you think we call it that, Tim?
Well, let me explain to you what happens when two people fall in love, to give you some insight on that question. Okay, this comes from Carl Jung. Okay, and again, this is for heterosexual relationships, but let me explain, and you'll get what I'm talking about. In a man,
let me just say this before you go there. Don't forget, I can do this. Okay. Go ahead.
So in a man, Carl Jung refers to it as the animus. The animus is an unconscious drive in a man to meet a woman. And in the woman, he referred to it as the anima. It's an unconscious drive in a woman to meet a man. We have these unconscious motivations to meet somebody. But the point is when you are dating, what you're doing is you're developing this vision. The reason why you break up with somebody is because either something about you or something about them that needs to be further understood or clarified. But when you meet that person, just like when you met your man, you two had a vision. Were looking for what you were looking for. He was looking for what he was looking for.
Well, first of all, he's not my man. He's my husband.
Your husband. Yeah, exactly. So
I
when
got
you
the
met your
paperwork to prove
husband,
it.
but the point is when you met him, he fulfilled this vision that you were looking for. And when he met you, you filled this vision of what he was looking for. That's what it's an unconscious drive that, again, the way Carl Jung refers to it is the anima in the man and the animus in the woman, but it's us trying to meet our partner. Okay, and when you meet your partner, this is why when you meet somebody that you fall in love with, it happens so quickly because you've met your match, so to speak. Okay, that's why falling in love happens very quickly when it's the right person. And when you're struggling, when you're dating somebody and you're not getting to that point, because to me, the ultimate sign of getting over the wall of fear of vulnerability is when you and your partner both independently decide that you want to spend the rest of your lives together.
So, Tim, what happens, hypothetically speaking, what happens in Tim Kellis's world if, let's say, 10 years, 5 years, 8 months down the road, your current relationship should fall apart and you find yourself in the road of divorce? Does that null and void all the work you're doing? Does that make you not do this anymore? Because, I'm asking because you came to this when you finally found what's working. But what happens if it doesn't last? Because you're one half of the equation.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? What about if something happens and she goes south, and then people are like saying, well, if you're so good at this, if you know so much, Tim, how come you're now divorced again?
Well, again, the things that I teach, it's the content that I'm teaching on whether or not this is successful. We're all, all of us in the marriage business are all, whatever we do personally is going to determine our success or not.
Well, when you said, like, I'm getting back to that forgiveness of the parents part, I can do that and be ready for what is for me. But what if the other person, I hear my husband tell people all the time, quit looking for Mr. or Miss Right. Just work on being Mr. or Miss Right. Because if you're looking for them and you haven't done the self-work that you need to, they're not going to recognize you as their mate, their equal when you get there, and vice versa. Because you're not there yet. You see? So let me ask you this. Okay, so that's one piece, the forgiveness part. But what about people that just look for love in all the wrong places? My mom, I used to hear my adopted mom tell my sisters, where'd you meet that boy? In the club. Girl, if you meet him in the club, I guarantee you that's where you're going to leave him. That's what she'd say. How do you feel about where we go to meet or look for what is supposed to be our soulmate? Some people say the produce session. Some people say the meat market bar. Some people go to meetup groups online. What do you say about that when it's time to go seeking?
Well, you're talking about the dating part of the process.
Well, it's got to start somewhere. You're not just going to sit down and say, oh, nice shoes. Want to get married?
I understand that. But the issue with your question is I do not know or understand the dynamics of the anima and the animus. I do not know what brings two people together that are supposed to be together. That is the chemistry of love. That is, that's why they call it chemistry. It's not really known, other than the fact that you've met somebody that matches this vision of what you're looking for.
So you don't believe in law of attraction?
That's what this is. That's what law of attraction is. Law of attraction is you're looking for what you're looking for, or you find what you're looking for in essence. And if you're looking, here's one of the issues that you just talked about. If you are an angry person, okay, you will find an angry person. You are going to fall in love with who you are. But the question is, do you want to be in a marriage with an angry person? If the answer of that is no, then you're the one that has to be happy with yourself.
Jim,
if you are happy with yourself, you're going to find somebody else who's happy with themselves. You're going to find who you are.
Well, I know people who have wonderful marriages, and I'm sure some of you out there do as well, who tell the story of how when they came, I was bruised or I was wounded, and this person helped me heal. I helped them. That's what when people say evenly yoked or your soulmate, it doesn't mean that, I have the same 50% you have. Your strength is I want your strength to be my weakness, and I want my weakness to be your strength. I want my peanut butter in your chocolate on my peanut butter.
Exactly.
So, talk about, we got about 10 minutes left. What kind of people have you, what is the number one thing, Tim, that you've seen is the saboteur? When you get people there and you know you have what could help them, but they just won't accept it, or they just won't do that one thing. What is that one thing that stops so many people from stepping over that line into healing?
One of the things that I talk about when I work with couples is the reality that there is one and only one person in your life who is supposed to have, I will caveat this,
Okay.
who is supposed to have the same goals as you.
Ah.
And that's your partner, not your kids, not your friends, not your siblings, not your coworkers, not your parents.
Right.
The only person who is supposed to have the same goals as you is your parents. I mean, is your partner, is your spouse.
Your spouse,
Okay?
right.
So when you have somebody who's resistant, you always take them to the goal. Don't you want to be happy in your marriage? That is supposed to be a rhetorical question. Because what you're talking about is, I just posted this in my Facebook group. I have a Facebook group that I posted in the chat. It's called the Marriage Support Group.
Okay.
And the meme says that you are not here to fix me. You are here to hold my hand while I fix myself. Exactly.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
So,
because the reality is that marriage is a mirror. Okay. The Chinese have a saying that history is a mirror. When you meet your partner is supposed to be enticing you to reflect about who you are yourself. And when you realize that your partner is there to bring out these things inside of yourself that you may not be focused. The goal is not to find love. That turns out to be the easy part. The goal is to find the barriers that you have inside of yourself that is keeping you from opening up to love. That's vulnerability.
Well, let's take a look at this. This is your website, clearly. Everybody can see that. Yeah. It says here, check out this great video up here in the top. So let's check it out.
Logical. Now, how do you think we're...
Oh, I was already watching it. Sorry.
Hi, welcome back. Well, today we're discussing a very thought-provoking subject, equality in marriage.
Oh boy, I think I know where this one is going. But this is really a good topic of conversation because as we try to balance our lives, our children, our careers, you name it, relationships are often really hard to put on a balance.
Yes, and as divorce continues to be an ever-present reality for so many people, the quest for a happy marriage is, well, it can be quite a journey. With us today to discuss this topic is Tim Kellis, author of Equality, The Quest for a Happy Marriage. Hi, Tim.
Tim, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You have found the secret.
I believe I've solved the marriage problem. Yeah.
Okay,
please. Clue us in.
Well, the bottom line is, and the way I address it in the book, is you have to understand how the mind works. And believe it or not, I think this is the only relationship book that's ever addressed marriages from the mental perspective. You have to do that because you got to understand your problems. What I basically do is I take the reader on a journey through his mind or her mind, and I also take him on a journey through his partner's mind because you have to understand the partner's perspective. And conflict resolution is what we're doing.
So what are your core key points, Tim?
Well, they're basically, the book is split into 4 sections. The first section is the appropriate relationship, what I call a positive relationship. I use examples of capitalism, for example.
So it's kind of a model of how a relationship should be.
50-50 partnership where you both have to agree. How's that for a concept?
Both have to agree?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, you can't agree to disagree.
What's that?
I can't, for me, the 50-50 thing. That's because sometimes don't you agree it's not always going to be 50-50? And isn't that okay?
Well, the reality is, what I mean, you have to understand the mental perspective of the man and the mental perspective of the woman. The agreement, when I mean 50-50, it means you both have to understand each other's perspective and come to terms that are the best for both of you. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the problem when you say 50-50 is you're trying and quantify it, but I don't mean literally 50%.
Right, because not necessarily, like you're not advocating that if there happens to be a couple
Now,
that has
notice she's
traditional
making
gender roles, for
behavior
instance,
comments.
you don't advocate that they both should make equal amount, should give equal amount in childcare, should equal amount in,
Behavior. She's a
you're basically
licensed
saying it'll
therapist.
even out if
Right.
people understand.
And she
Well,
understands
quantity.
behavior.
The books that I've read that describe equality from a behavioral perspective don't
Which is
get
what I
used. When I
respond.
say equality, I mean mental equality. Women are more emotional, men are more logical. Now, how do you think we're going to come together? I should have to understand your emotional perspective, and you would maybe want to understand my logical perspective. That's equality.
So that's when you say 50-50, you mean an equal voice and an equal able to understand
Yeah,
empathy
exactly.
for each other.
Well, this came from a really personal place for you, didn't it? Tell
Yeah.
us a brief history of your story and how you went from, was it Wall Street
Yes,
to writing?
Exactly. Well, first, I grew up relatively poor. My dad was a cab driver for 22 years. My mom was a secretary, and put myself through engineering school, 9 years of communications equipment industry experience, got my MBA, landed on Wall Street, where I was the first semiconductor analyst to focus on the communications market.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, and then at the height of all this, I met this girl I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And we got engaged, fought, went to a therapist, and when I realized that didn't work, took on the issue myself. Over 100 books went into the research of this book.
So let me ask you here. What year was that interview?
2000. 2002, I believe.
So-
No, I'm sorry. 2007, I believe it was. 2007 or 2008. It'll say it on the bottom of the video.
Okay, so I just want to watch because we have a lot of LGBT people that watch this show and will watch the replay. Is what you have, what we saw, and what they'll find here on the screen at happyrelations.com, is it just for heterosexuals? Because you keep talking about man and woman, and that's going to make me, if I was having a problem and I knew, well, he talked about man and women and that only, I'm not going to you.
The reality is that, again, the only thing I can say is, obviously I'm not gay, but the reality is what I do is I address it mentally. And from the outside, there's logical and emotional. These are the two different aspects that are inside of each of us. We have thoughts and we have feelings. And the reality is that one person is generally better at one, and the other is generally better at the other. One is more logical and the other is more emotional. Those are mental concepts. I don't care about.
Yeah, but that's not, I don't think that's germane to, I think that's the female or male. I know guys that can cry on a dime and women that'll knock you out before a tear ever hits their cheek. You know
That's
what I'm
why
saying?
I'm not saying gender when I say this. I say that you can have a man that's more emotional and a woman that's more logical. What I'm saying is when you say it mentally, one is more emotional, the other is more logical. I didn't say the gender of who's more emotional, who's more logical. And if they're two guys or two girls, from the outside, again, I'm not gay, so I can't explain it from experience. But from the outside, I would think that one's still going to be more logical and the other's going to be more emotional, regardless of whether they're two guys or two girls or whether they're one guy and one girl.
Well, here's how I look at it, Tim. Seriously. Love is love.
Exactly.
And it is unconditional.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter if it's logical, if it's emotional. If it is unconditional and it is love, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
It just is. That's just how I feel about it,
But what is unconditional love? Unconditional love is when you do something without expecting anything in return. That is what unconditional love is. Most people have conditional love. I will do this for you if you give me something in return.
I agree. So, Tim, what do you got going now? I noticed when we went in there, you had the workshop and stuff, but it said August. You got anything coming up between now and the new year? A lot of people like to start the year off on a bang and change something from great to greater. How can you help with that, and where do they go to find out more?
Well, first off, for people that are watching this live, today is Thursday. I'm actually having my next seminar on Saturday. So if you want to email me, I can send you the invite to my next seminar. But it's free. It's 2 hours, but I do a seminar about once a month.
Can they find the information here? We're on the screen.
Just email me with the email
address. You there, Tim Kellis at happyrelationships.com. Yeah. That's where you want to go.
But the other thing they can do is I have started a group on Facebook so what you want to do is you go to Facebook and search the Marriage Support Group.
Okay.
It's a picture of a couple kissing. I have 15,000 members in my group.
Let me guess, a heterosexual couple? I'm kidding.
Listen, I don't.
Clearly, I'm not hetero.
Yeah,
Like,
it
you
doesn't
clearly
matter.
I'm not gay.
Yeah.
Let me just put this to you too, just for those of you out there. If only I had a quarter.
But again, to me, it doesn't matter. It's as you said, love is love. It doesn't. To me, it's mentally. It's two people that come together to commit to each other. It's a mental experience. And when you address it that way, it doesn't matter the gender of the two that are involved. But if you want to go to the marriage support group, it's really cool. One of the reasons why my group has been exploding, it was 1,000 members a year ago. So we've gone from 1,000 to 15,000 in the last 12 months, is because I allow other marriage experts. I think Dr. Janice is a member of that group, but I allow other marriage experts to come and contribute, because without marriage experts, all you get in the group are people bashing their spouses. You know, my husband's leaving me, my wife's cheating on me, all this stuff. And what we do is we add more of a here's what you can do about it dialogue. Remember, the why is it happening? That's one of the things that I get into. Why are you guys having trouble? Why is there problems in your marriage? Let's find out why there are problems so we can find out the source of the problem, and then we can ultimately solve a problem. To define a problem without discussing a solution is to be judgmental. But when you move past the problem definition and get into problem solution, that's what we're doing in that group. So the group is a great place for people to come and find a collaborative effort on helping people in their relationships.
Well, there you go. And for those of you out there who are inside of a committed, loving relationship / marriage, dating, whatever, you know when something feels right. You know when it is that moment that you've been looking and waiting for all your life. It doesn't matter if someone validates it in a course or a class or inside of a therapy room. It's confirmed within your spirit, within your soul. I knew the moment I looked into my everything's eyes that I would not leave this world alone. And that's what I stick with. It's my truth, and it ain't changing. So you guys, I want you to get out there today and do what we do. Thank you so much, Tim Kellis. Very enlightening today. And you guys get out, like I said, take great to greater, bright to brighter, take strong to stronger. And we do that through sharing our stories, having spirited conversation, dialogue, respectfully, reasonably as people. And then we act accordingly. Get out there and make this world a better place. Be good to yourselves and be even better to someone else. I'll see you tomorrow morning. My guest is Timothy Johnson. Remember him from last year? Found out it when he was 6 years old on television, watching the news that his father was indeed a serial killer. They had apprehended him. He has since found his biological family. Is going to come back and tell us all about the book that brings it all together. That's tomorrow. I'll meet you out front as always on the front porch at 8 a.m. Central. God willing, and we'll do it all again for our next episode of Bathrobe Moments. Bye-bye.